Hi everyone, this is Piyush Ranjan. I'm the founder and chief consultant of Management Masters. We are a boutique admissions consultancy firm for the top MBA and MIM programs in the world. Now, today we have somebody very special. We have Eswar with us, who was one of our first candidates who worked with us to apply to some of the top US schools. Eswar ended up receiving an admit from the Kellogg Business School at Northwestern University, and he's joining the Triple M program from them. So, without any further ado, welcome Eswar to the interview. Really glad to be here. Really glad to have you with us. So, why don't you start with a very quick introduction about yourself and tell us what you do and what you've been doing over the past few years?
Yeah. So I started my career in 2015 after I passed out from IIT Varanasi. I started with core engineering work, mechanical engineering. I worked for an aerospace firm, Eaton in Pune. I worked there for 1.5 years, and then I realized that this is not the path which I can foresee myself into the future for 4 or 5 years. So I moved to a non-profit called Swanati Initiative, where I worked almost for 1 year with a member of parliament to develop his constituency. Later on, I started working with the member of parliament itself in two of his firms. And most recently, I've been leading new product launch in Everest. And then I was also head of operations for one of the firms which manufacture medical equipment, non-critical medical equipment. So, and then I'm just about to start classes for Kellogg from Monday, that is July 20th, and I'm excited about it.
That's great to hear. So, Eswar, before we dive deeper into your MBA preparation journey and everything that you've done with it, you said that you worked for around 1.5 to 2 years in a corporate setting, and then you took the plunge into Swanati Initiative, working with a member of parliament. So, what exactly was your motivation behind it? So, could you tell us something a bit more about that?
Yeah, so when I was working with the firm, it's not that I really didn't like the work. I really liked the work because it's a new project, and I was there in a rotational program where I was working on leading projects, and also I was getting opportunities to work with higher management. But at the same time, I felt like something is lacking, and then I need to see the impact of my work. So I was working in aerospace where you can't see the immediate impact of the work which I'm doing, but let's see, if I'm going to social sector, I can see the immediate impact. So that made me to transition to social sector where I could see the impact of the work which I did.
That sounds great. So you moved from the aerospace sector into the social sector, and then you somehow decide that you would like to do an MBA. So was it something that was always on your mind, or how did it exactly come about? What motivated you to go towards an MBA?
Yeah, so I think what motivated me is while I was in Eton, so I think I saw one lecture from Harvard Business School, and then I was really impressed by the professor himself. So I thought, okay, can I become a professor at a business school? And then I approached, I think I went for a MBA fair in Bombay at the time, Mumbai at the time. And I realized, okay, there are two ways in which you can become a professor at a business school. So one is basically, okay, you do a PhD directly after your graduation and then you move it. That's not an option for me because I was coming from purely engineering background. And then second was, okay, you do an MBA and then you work for some years in the industry and then come back to the same school. That's one of the approaches which you can take. So that was my initial motivation while I was working in Eton, which I had. So, but that changed drastically now. So, yeah.
All right. So after that initial motivation, like how did it shift in the next 2 to 3 years that you worked in the social sector?
Yeah. So after that, I moved to social sector, and then while I was there in the social sector, I was really using my engineering skill to create an impact. So there I felt, okay, I think I found my interest again in engineering there. And after my social work in social sector, I again moved to engineering, so where I could work on some sustainable projects or product design. And I really liked the work there. And then because that plan of MBA was already there in my mind, I thought, okay, this is the best time for me to do MBA because I want to transition into a tech or agribusiness firm where I always had interest in.
All right, sounds pretty nice. Tell us something about your the journey that you had when you were preparing for your MBA. So how did you start? When did the first thought of now you should start applying for an MBA program? When did that first thought come, and how did you actually take it from there?
Yeah, it all started, I think, while I was working in the non-profit. A friend of mine who applied for MBA that year and then got into MIT Sloan. And then I thought, okay, I should also give it a try. So I attempted my GMAT in 2017. I didn't prepare that much, but I ended up with a score of 700. And then I left it for almost like 1.5, 2 years. And then I thought, okay, this is the time for me to give GMAT. So in 2019, I gave GMAT and then applied for the schools.
All right. And did you prepare, did you first prepare GMAT and then did you go for the application, or did you do these things in parallel? How did you manage that?
Yeah, so initially my plan was, okay, I'll prepare for GMAT first and then I'll go for preparation. But as you only suggested me at the time, stating that, okay, that's not a better approach, then I found, so initially I started my MBA application process, and I think it gave me some amount of time to actually realize what exactly will go into the MBA process. And then later on I decided, okay, I was not able to do both of them parallelly. So I stopped for 3 to 4 weeks and then prepared for GMAT and then came back to applications. But one thing which has really helped me by starting first is I always had an idea about what exactly will be going into it, and had a thought about, okay, what might go in, even my free time or something, okay, this can go into thing, this can go into thing. So that kind of thought process helped me overall, you can say.
All right. So while you were preparing, was there anything particular that really helped you, or which you would really suggest others to do as well? For example, in GMAT, I think you don't really suggest going parallel, or other. At least that did not work very nicely for you. But is there something which worked really nicely for you and you really suggest others to follow suit?
One thing I think which created a lot of impact for me was taking a break from the work for the last 5 days, because it gave a better score for me, or a boost for me in the last 4-5 days, because I had a lot of work issues which were related to work. I was able to switch off my phone and then keep it aside, because I was getting a lot of calls where I was having disturbance. During that time, I think I picked up my accuracy levels or something for GMAT. I was getting good in the mocks, and then I think that break of separating my work during the last days has helped me to boost my score.
Yeah. So basically setting aside very dedicated time for GMAT rather than trying to fit everything in together.
Yeah,
really help candidates. Absolutely, that works fine. That works greatly, actually. The next question that I have is more to do with your choices in terms of your MBA programs, because at Kellogg you did not really apply for the normal MBA but rather for the Triple M program. So maybe could you tell us a bit more about what exactly the Triple M program is, if it's very different from the MBA program, and what extra do you get? And if the selection process is easier for Triple M, or it's the same level as the normal MBA at Kellogg.
Okay, so let me start with selection process and then I'll go for
Absolutely.
this. So selection process, as such, in the application process, you just have to give one essay more for Triple M program. And when you talk about acceptance rate, Kellogg tells that all are equal. We really don't know how much of competition is there, etc. And regarding the program, now that I look back about what exactly are the profiles of the present curriculum program. Everybody has some kind of customer interface in their backgrounds. So everybody understand the value of understanding customer or like design or something. It might be people from different backgrounds coming into consulting, coming from consulting, finance, whatever it might be. They always had some kind of customer interaction, and they really understand how important is the customer in designing or like anything. So the program itself, if you talk about how it is different from curriculum wise, so Triplum program, you have to study one quarter more, like summer quarter is extra. And so it's basically, you have a group, a community inside a bigger community of Kellogg MBA group itself. So every quarter, Triplums will take one separate class, which is into designing and also most of operations or analytical side of the program. So during my at least like introductory classes, which we had from Triplum, which you can really see into, it really talks about its design in different forms. So design, they're talking about like design in terms of business. How will you design a business model, or how will you design a product, etc. It's not just about designing as such like arts and everything. It's designing in terms of business, like how will you design for lesser probability of failure, is what I would say.
All right. So, just out of curiosity, does it also will you also be talking about aspects of design thinking, which was developed at Stanford, or is it also more in general about a lot more to do with processes and how businesses should work or interact with customers to make them more friendly, or something else?
It talks about design thinking, like they always talk about human-centered approach and everything. Definitely the approach which Stanford had, so that definitely I think it might be having an impact on this program. It's a lot of practical stuff which happen. You have a design lab where you actually go and build models with your hands, which is not a typical MBA student who does it. And you also go and talk to the customers, and you also get to work with a real world problem in a company. You can solve that problem on your own in Triplum program. It talks about how innovation itself is not important, but what is the relevance of the innovation. So if it's not relevant, like let's say Segway, it was a great innovation, but it's not relevant for the present day world.
So that sounds great. Could you, coming back to Kellogg and the MBA application that it has, Kellogg has some really nice essays which talk a lot about values. They focus on Kellogg's values and also the personal values that the candidates have. So how did you tackle those essay questions from Kellogg?
Yeah, so really it's like if you take the number of questions which Kellogg has, like Kellogg had 3 questions, out of which almost like in 2 you have to talk about the values or your abilities or something. So I think I always had like 2-3 examples which I could always quote in the essays, and based on that examples, and also at that time I was also thinking what exactly am I, or what values did I exhibit on that. Recollecting that one, I was more focused on, okay, I care for people around me, or like I enjoy working with people, and that is what even Kellogg always does. Like Kellogg is always about teams. So I think that's I talked about the values regarding the people around me, and how I approach this is basically it's like you first I have all the examples which I have, and then later on I realized, okay, this is something really I care about, or like I want to meet people or like learn from them, and those are also the values which Kellogg Triplum program also cares about. So I think it was a good match. Even if you see the entire applications which I worked for, I felt like Kellogg was something, okay, I could put myself into the applications like perfectly. It can match or align. The questions were aligning. So it was easier for me in that way.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that, this is the application where you really felt yourself after finishing the entire application.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that,
yeah.
that's great. Absolutely. So you were made for Kellogg, and that's where you are. A very quick question. So obviously we work together for your applications, but in general, what was your experience from purely a candidate perspective? Like, would you suggest people to go for consultants? And what situations would it be when you would not suggest people to go for a consultant?
Yeah. So, see, for I'll talk about my case first, why I needed a consultant, and then I'll go for the part of the question of why other people can or cannot have a consultant. So for me, I was very clear that okay, I needed a consultant because I need somebody to push me on the timelines. That is the first question, and then second was also about how I structure my thoughts and everything. So which were both great for me because you are offering it's like you don't have a limit on number of times you're putting number of times editing the essay or number of times you're talking, or like there's no time limit. So that's one part which I really liked about management masters. And so I know that I always wanted a consultant, so I approached it. Regarding like who don't want a consultant, I think people who have the drive of putting themselves a timeline and then focusing on the application because it's a tedious process, they can definitely go for it. And they definitely need to have some kind of connections, I would say. Those people who went for business schools without a consultant, those are the people who approach, like who already knew people who were there in the business schools and who took help from them, like repeated help from them. Those connections help. Having said that, at least from India, I could say that almost like 90% of the people who went into Kellogg had consultants. It's not like somebody, it's like when...
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Again, this is something that I think we also like maintain very strongly, that it's not always that everybody needs consultants. Consultants do bring their own advantages, but if somebody is very clear about what they want to write about, or they have that structure, or they have that self-awareness, and they have the drive to finish the applications on time, I don't think it's not mandatory for everybody to go for a consultant. But again, when it comes to MBA applications, you do MBA only once, and you feel that you would need somebody to push yourself higher or for better schools. Absolutely. Like, don't shy away from a consultant just because you don't feel like it. If a consultant can help you achieve better, obviously, like, that makes sense. But again, I'm very happy that you work with us. I hope you are as well. Let's come back to Kellogg, and something very, very interesting that's actually, today we have a lot of questions from candidates, especially because of the COVID scenario. Right, and how things have been, and how MBA classes have shifted online or hybrid models. So I wanted to ask you this because this is something that you are actually facing, and you've already taken some classes from Kellogg, and you'll start your full-blown classes from Monday onwards. So how has your experience been until now, and how do you think it might evolve in the coming months?
Okay, so initially I was very apprehensive, as anyone would be, like regarding the online classes. But we took some classes on leadership development from Kellogg initially, and then we felt like it's really, really effective even online. The reason being, they're using all the technology which is possible. So they have virtual hand raises, or they have breakout rooms, which is a very good functionality in Zoom, where you can break out into different rooms. Students will talk about it, and then you join the class again, which you can do it. And even when we are talking about the present students who already had the opportunity of taking in-person and offline classes, even they say that some classes work better in online format because of the option of breakout rooms, because in an actual classroom, you can't break out into groups of 2 or 3 for let's say if you have a class for 2 hours, you can't go for two to 3 person groups and then come back, because the infrastructure will not allow you to do that. But in online platform, you can do that. So that's some functionality which might work, or maybe people will take forward even at business schools. We don't know.
All right.
And on the other side, there are still some disadvantages. You can say there is like you can talk about the time overlap. That means we are almost like 10.5 hours ahead of them. So what happens and all these things. And regarding the social issues, there is a loss of social contacts or developing new contacts in US. At the same time, because it's a COVID situation, even the plans for them are also halted. So it's not like they have many options to explore or travel or like that. And regarding the future, it's almost like I think Indian embassies can open in the next 10-15 days. And if the embassies open, at least for Kellogg, we don't have any problem because they're offering in-person classes.
Okay.
The latest regulations might not be of any impact on us.
Okay, that sounds great. A very quick question. So, you mentioned regarding the social, the connections that you make, they are not very easy to make. So, have there been any specific sort of like events or initiatives taken by Kellogg to help you gel better with the classes, or something like that?
They're definitely doing it. So even this study groups which you form, they're ensuring that you have some international students who are like from different time zones, and in almost like you can say 50 to 60% of all the events which they're having some kind of virtual content or like part of it where you can involve in some way or other. They're organizing virtual lunches or like virtual dinners, even though it won't suit your timings, but it actually helps you, like trivia. In trivia, like people are participating from across, even if they're in US, you can participate, and then you break it into different groups. So as such, the clubs of Kellogg are actually trying to put it into place, and the school also is ensuring some of the things. So they gave international students an option to choose from 2 options of the class timings. So we can choose first, and then they implemented that on the domestic students. So school itself is also trying to put more of an inclusive agenda when we take that into picture.
That's great. That sounds great. It seems like obviously, these are very strange times, very unheard of times. So the solutions and the adaptations will have to be there. But it seems like, yes, the schools are making the most amount of effort that they can. And the same goes for the students as well. So I think you are also making a lot of adjustments and adapting to the best that you can have. Right. So that sounds great. So I would have just one last question for you. What would be your final tip be for anyone who's applying to Kellogg this year?
So I would say final tip would be something like, you choose the program which you want. Definitely, I would highlight your program if you are interested in like product design or something related to it. And Kellogg really focuses on team values. You can see it's like, I think we already have like a lot of groups which are floating, and then the clubs are also operating very well. So if you think you're a type of person who can actually work in teams, or you want to learn to work in teams, I think Kellogg would be a better school and suit for you.
That sounds great. All right, Eswar. So I wish you the best for your classes, for your MBA program, and I look to keep forward and keep in touch with you as we go forward. And best wishes for you for your MBA.
Thank you, Piyush, and I wish you the same. I think your firm, the idea of taking the best and then catering the time for them, I think you'll continue it, and then you'll have all the success.
Thank you so much, Eswar.